Hello, leaders. Hey, this is Paul Grau, and welcome to Run to Your Leadership Challenges. This is the daily show that equips team leaders to lead through the challenges they face every day. So today, it's number 3 of the series on trust, and I'm interviewing my wife, Jennifer Grau, and my wife and business partner. And man, she is, I'd say, the best expert I know on trust, and she's done a lot of studying on this. And we're going to continue the conversation that we've had all week up to this point. And how you doing today, Jen?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
You are welcome. Well, thanks for being here again. So yesterday we left off about talking about this trust exchange, right? So can you explain this trust exchange a little bit more?
Absolutely. So I explained that when you have trust, it starts with an exchange, and that exchange is really a minimum of 2 people that come together and they gain or lose something. Mm-hmm. So it relies on you and me, a situation and an emotion to take place, and then something is gained or lost from that. So to make this a little bit easier to understand, I'll compare it to a financial transaction. So I can purchase something from you. You can then give it to me, and then I can feel good or bad regarding that transaction. And that will either build or diminish my level of trust in you, and then determine whether or not I want to work with you in the future. And we do this every day when we're buying gas or purchasing groceries or going to see the doctor. On the flip side of that, in that same transaction, where I am purchasing something from you, you can either feel good or bad about how that transaction took place, like the price or the outcome or my attitude or a multitude of factors. And you will either gain trust in me or experience a distrust and a resistance to work with me in the future. And in those instances, there is an option. And we have alternate choices if we want to. We can go to a different store. But that is what comes together to make that trust exchange, and we move forward whether we trust or distrust.
So how does, I totally get how this trust exchange plays out if you're buying something or selling something. And yeah, I felt both great when I sold stuff, and I felt kind of bad when I sold stuff, I guess. But how does this trust exchange play out in the workplace?
So in the workplace, it's similar. You have an exchange that happens when an employee does what is required for their role in the organization, and then when leadership fulfills their role in the organization. But there's a little bit more to that, and I'll explain in just a second. But a few years ago, I had a conversation with a mid-level leader regarding top leadership, those that were above him. And there was a concern among the staff, and I was a part of this very large staff, that we were concerned about the decisions that were being made by top leadership. And so they thought, okay, let's talk to everyone and let's see where this dissension is coming from, and see if we can basically mitigate it, answer questions and ask some questions to see if we can, keep this from happening in the future. So they put us into small groups, and they said, this is going to be a very neutral situation. You do not have to fear for your job. We're not going to use anything that you say against you. It's going to just be a very open conversation. We want you to feel comfortable. We want you to feel like you can ask us the questions that you're concerned about, and you can let us know how this is affecting you and your job. Thought it was an excellent way to set things up. And I know that we have said the same things to employers that we've worked with. So I felt really good going into this situation. As the conversation progressed, though, as it got towards the end of our time together, I could tell that things had slightly shifted. That mid-level manager that I was talking to, his body language had kind of tensed. He was now sitting more towards the table, and I could tell that his tone was shifting a little bit as well. And I didn't know if maybe things weren't going the way he wanted. Maybe he had anticipated it being different, or he had a different expectation from it. And then he made a statement that, he said, so you don't just give trust. So maybe that feels neutral to you, but all of us there, we did not have that reaction. And the energy in the room just totally changed. And well, at the time, I thought it was just a really odd thing to say. And I was kind of taken aback and kind of trying to figure out why is there this shift in the atmosphere here, the energy in this room. And I didn't know how to articulate what I wanted to say. And after a pause, then somebody jumped in and they started to kind of respond to that. But that is what put me on this mission to find out more about psychology and neuropsychology and neurobiology and to really, delve into researching leadership and emotional intelligence and business ethics, because I wondered if this was bordering on that. And if I go through all of my research and everything, it came down to that statement. He had inadvertently, and I will even err on the side of it being unintentional, he had taken the conversation from one of safety and openness to being unsafe and judgmental. And so now one of the opposites of trust is fear. And when you don't feel safe, you start to have fear. And that leads to distrust. And from discussing this with a couple of the others that were at this same meeting, because there was about 5 of us in addition to this gentleman, they all said that is when they started to question what they had said about this not impacting our jobs, because he had inflicted judgment in that statement. And it almost stopped the conversation entirely. And it was that in itself was a negative trust exchange. The goal was to bring health and conversation and trust, restore trust in our leadership, and especially those that were in the top leadership. And none of us were feeling that. So it's really, really important that if you do set yourself up to have one of those types of conversations that's going to be kind of challenging, and you allude that it is going to be a neutral situation and people are going to there's not going to be any fear involved or anything. You have to be highly aware of how your behaviors and the words that you say can influence what is going on. And it can either do a lot towards building trust, or it can really take it away and change that trajectory of the conversation entirely to one that's a negative exchange of trust.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. As I was cringing as you were telling that story, because that's exactly what I was feeling. Is they took that neutral environment and instead of making it positive, they made it negative. And based on what you talked about earlier in the week, man, once you get to that negative environment, man, then, and that safety, that has a lot to do with DISC and S's and how S's represent 70% of the workforce, and they crave that safe environment. But we may talk about that more in the future. So let's wrap it up right there. Thanks for being here again today, Jen. We really appreciate you and all the knowledge and wisdom you bring into the show. And for everybody else, have a great rest of your day. And until tomorrow, run to your challenges.